Hi, I'm Bill Moretti, and I'm going to go through Jimmy Ballard's book. I think it's a great book, but I think it's been demonstrated and could be explained a lot better. When I first seen this book in 1982, I was very excited because I knew Jack Nicklaus was the top player at that time. He swung very upright, a little bit of a tilt, a lot of reverse C through the ball, and most great players swung in that fashion, and for some reason I felt that wasn't the correct way to swing. More of a Hogan or a Snead I thought was a better swing at that time. And Ballard says in his book that the swing, he demonstrates what Hogan does, what Snead does, but when I see it demoed, I just don't see that or explained correctly. Everything I say in this tape, you can go ahead and look in his book. It's in his book, maybe not explained, maybe not interpreted or demoed correctly, or I shouldn't say correctly, the way I see it. So I'm going to start off with the top players Jimmy's taught. He's worked with Curtis Strange and Hal Sutton, real good golf swings. He actually, I didn't know this, Jim McLean told me he went over to Sweden and taught a lot of the teachers how to teach. So then we got Annika's swing, Ludwig Aberg have a lot of influence. I think Justin Leonard has a lot of his movements in his golf swing. Of course, Rocco Mediate, I think of recent, Corey Connors, one of Jimmy's teachers, works with Ballard's principles with Corey Connors. So I'm going to go through, he wants it an athletic move. I couldn't agree with more. Starts off where he shows it's like a basketball pass, where he says a shag bag, where you're bending from the hips, you're coiling to the right leg, you're releasing here. And when you do that, you'll notice the elbows are down, you're supporting the club with the lat muscles, you're keeping this extension the same as you coil back and release through. So he says it's a lot of hitting and throwing sports are the same. If you throw a baseball, if you skip a stone, if you throw a frisbee with your left hand, it's all the same athletic motion, and I couldn't agree with more. And when doing this shag ball thing, you can see when you go back, you're keeping your body the same level back and through, the same posture you established in the dress back and through, and it's giving you an automatic weight shift. Obviously, if I went this way, I'd be tilting my body. So this motion right here is valuable. With the grip, I think I love where he says you grip it like this, and then you try to pull the club, and you're supporting it with your lat muscles. I know a lot of us have been taught our whole lives to grip it with the last three fingers of the left hand. There's actually, if you go to Hogan's swing in the Life magazine, he actually has the club like this at the top of the swing. He isn't strangling it with the last three fingers. So I like it how he likes the support in that fashion. I mean, we know this from Hogan's book, but I like it when there's a pull, you're holding it with your back muscles instead of grabbing it in your last three fingers in this fashion. The first thing that's misinterpreted is a triangle and center starting back together. He does say to put it here. He also gives some leeway. You can put a little forward to center. I personally like it here because my right hand's lower than the left, but I like it where he says, you turn back, your triangle and center go, your left knee, everything's together. Here's a kind of thing that we don't realize. You're establishing your extension right here. If you start back with your hands and arms, you're already narrow. So you're starting back with your left knee and your center and your triangle when you go back to the top. I like where he says left knee. A lot of people think you turn back on the right hip. Well, you do turn back to the right hip, but your right hip cannot actually turn back. It can only turn through. Your left leg is what actually turns back. It might appear that the right hip is turning back, but it's the left leg and left hip pushing in this fashion. When you're doing this, the triangle, the arms, both, the triangle is the hands, the shoulders, and both arms. It's demonstrated too much where just the left arms connect. It's both arms that are feeling this fashion. That's where you're gaining this width. There's one of the great pictures in his book is where it shows Tom Watson keeping this distance constant as he coiling back to his right side. And that only happens if you're swinging with both arms not just your left arm, you're already narrow. And also, the thing he talks about a lot about left arm connection, which couldn't agree more, but he also talks about right arm connection. You're swinging back here, this right arm's in this fashion, it coils back to the top, that's where I started. I didn't start here where it's real narrow. Your arm's here, the elbow's down, you coil back, the right elbow's down right where it started in front of your body. That's every hitting and throwing sport, the elbow's down, never out. That's how you can keep the stress on the shaft past the ball instead of in this fashion like this. So sometimes people will just go to an odd thing where he says keep the right arm outside the hip socket, right like this. That was Hogan's personal preference. Hogan he wanted the left wrist a little cup at the top of the swing, and that occurs because he had the club in the center, and he actually had the cup right on the takeaway. For most golfers, the elbows are in front of the body, the right elbow's there as you coil to the top. Getting behind the ball, well, we kind of already said it, where you're in this fashion, where you keep your levels, your coil back, but something he says that a lot of people would disagree with, and the only time I've ever read it is in Ben Hogan's first book, Power of Golf. He says there's a slight movement of the right hip there. You can see this obvious with Tiger of old. You can see this obvious with Ludwig Aber. This helps keeping your posture in the backswing. You don't want to ever turn in this fashion, then your shoulders will too flat and your arms will get behind you. So it makes this motion like this, and it looks a little odd how some people demonstrate it because they just swing back with just their left. They don't maintain the extension. They establish an address, and the right elbow is not down or connected where it started. Here's where it started. I'm just keeping it in that fashion. The only thing that's kind of funny in the book is he uses Miller Barber as an example. How do you use somebody else to feel this position at the top? On the downswing, he says you initiate with the lower body with the right knee of a kick. He's got a picture of Hogan like this, and the first move is like this, where his hips were a little bit closed, but here's a push off the right foot. This probably could have been done a little clearer in his book, but he said you start down where your arms fall in. Your arms obviously have to be in front of the body, not behind the body. This could have been a little bit, he could explain it. I know if we were one-on-one a little bit with him, he would explain that a little better. So it was here, there was a kick of the right foot, and then it went towards the ball. The right side was firing, and his left lat was pulling out of the way. He doesn't talk a lot about impact, but he shows himself hitting a cart seat in this fashion. So your body's not hanging back in this fashion. One of the interesting things when you hit a cart seat is how far this left side's out of the way when you hit this cart seat. So that was pretty cool. Also, on the downswing, he shows when you start down, the right knee goes towards the ball. The right outside force is going real hard towards the ball, and the inside force, the left hip, the left lat, the left shoulder is turning out of the way. That's what keeps the stress on the shaft. That makes you keeping that power way past the ball instead of just at the ball. So Jimmy's one of the few instructors that says you go hit and through and past the ball. The only other times I've read this is Al Geiberger's swing. He would say there's only one fast point of the swing, it should be past the ball. Percy Boomer's swing said he feels it, the fast point, or you should have total control past the ball. In Ben Hogan's book, he says it's an underhand basketball pass at the target at belt high, not at the ball. So committing that past the ball, keeping the club in the center, the right side firing so you keep the stress on the shaft, and the connection in the upper left side to keep turning through to keep stress on the shaft. And then his last point, obviously finishing, straight balance finish. That's a result of everything we've said so far. That basically means you're going to hit it a little bit more with your body instead of hang back with your upper body. In this book, you got to remember, came out in 1982 when everybody was doing just the opposite. And I thought it was a real value, that book coming out. Of course, I never understood it. in 1982, but I think I do now pretty well. Jim McLean does a tremendous job explaining his principles and has a lot of great books talking about this. Mike Adams, David Ledbetter, Mike Hebron all have a little bit of his points in his book. I also think if you're another book you should read, although the title's kind of odd, is 6 Days to Better Golf, written by Harry Ovitz and Dick Farley. And they talk a little, there's so many points in that book that just come out exactly what Ballard's saying. They emphasize more of swinging the forearms, but everything in his, if you go through that book, 6 Days to Better Golf, it has Ballard's point in there. Also, if you're a golfer, if I always say I wouldn't teach a student with a lot of body thoughts if they can't hit balls with their feet together and start it right, or feet together, start it left and faded. They have to have a little club face and path control before you can use a lot of body thoughts. So everything I'm telling you here is in his book. If you read it carefully, people think he teaches this way. Get behind the ball. In the last part of that chapter, he says, using your spine as an axis, the amount of lateral motion in the golf swing is inconsequential. Says it right in the book. So read it carefully, study it the best you can. And he had a tremendous effect on golf instruction in the early 80s when everybody was teaching pretty much just the opposite. Hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed trying to help it. I did talk to Jimmy Ballard about 2 years ago, and I explained what I was going to do, and he agreed 100%. Thank you very much.